Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Hitting the brakes.
We are receiving overwhelmingly positive comments, agreeing that we made the right decision to remove Tesla from the show.
EV giant Tesla gets removed from Vancouver's International Auto Show. Plus, election call countdown, who's up and who's down in the polls.
The NDP is in absolute critical condition.
I voted Green previously for the last, but I will be voting Liberal.
Pierre Poilievre, he is a master communicator. He is a master campaigner.
And what that could mean for your ballot. And liquor in limbo.
We are caught. We have paid for this inventory. We have finance costs involved.
BC liquor importers say the American booze they already stocked up before tariffs is stuck, and so is their cash flow.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
BC importers who bring American booze to Canada say their small businesses are caught up in a trade war, with hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory sitting in warehouses with nowhere to go. As Michelle Gassoub reports, they're warning of layoffs if they don't get help.
This product was sold in BC liquor stores. We used to have about 500 cases a month. So that sale is gone.
Achok Fogla's business imports American craft beer to Canada, or at least it used to.
The feeling that many British Columbians have now, when we look at American products, we don't even want to see them on the shelf anymore.
U.S. alcohol is one of the many products caught up in the trade war between Canada and the U.S. With American booze no longer sold at BC liquor stores, importers are in an unexpected bind.
I never thought in my wildest dream that anything could happen between Canada and U.S.
The way alcohol is imported into Canada varies province to province. In BC, importers make the purchase from American producers and store it in government-designated warehouses. The BC Liquor Distribution Branch, managed by the province, buys product from them. BC liquor stores, private liquor stores, and bars and restaurants all purchase from the branch.
We are caught. We have paid for this inventory. We have finance costs involved. As I just told you, we have to lay off the employees.
Fogla's company has around $320,000 worth of inventory stuck in a warehouse. If craft beer doesn't sell within a few months, it has to be destroyed. While his imports can still be sold in private liquor stores like this one, there isn't much demand for American product. BC Solicitor General, which manages the liquor distribution branch, declined an interview, but said BC liquor stores account for less than half of retail alcohol sales.
So these are our product again, craft beers in 6-pack.
There are hundreds of small importers whose business relies on U.S. product.
Even if this tariff era ends, we will be very careful in bringing the product in.
One small player caught in the crossfires of the trade war. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
And amid Canada-U.S. tensions, there's been a lot of talk of British Columbians canceling trips to America and reducing cross-border travel. But does that data back up that tough talk? Well, our Justin McElroy crunched the numbers to find out.
How many British Columbians are crossing the land border to the United States these days? And how many Americans are coming up north to British Columbia? It's a question on everyone's mind in recent months as U.S. President Donald Trump has made several threats about annexing Canada. But what do the numbers say about cross-border trips? Here is a chart. It shows the number of license plates coming south through the Peace Arch crossing on a rolling average from this time compared to last year. And it shows day by day, week by week, the numbers steadily dropping. Over the last month, about a 25% drop in total. Some days recently as high as 30, 40, or even 50% less than this time last year. But you'll notice from that chart that it's higher for people that don't have a Nexus card. People with a regular reason to cross the border and have gone through that complicated process to get a card, still coming a little bit more than those that don't have a card, but still less than this time last year. As for Americans though, it looks pretty similar. Some days a little bit up, some days a little bit down, but no major change. And in fact, when you look over the course of the last 4 months since the US election, traffic going southward with American license plates is actually up. though a lot of that can be explained from the 3 Taylor Swift concerts where hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Vancouver in December of last year. Canadians, however, less likely to shake off the ill will they have towards going to America anytime soon. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
And Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to call an election in a matter of days. And new polling shows the federal Liberals are gaining ground on Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. And as Katie DeRosa reports, some of that surge is coming at the expense of the federal NDP.
Mark Carney has been Prime Minister for less than a week, but he's already engineered a dramatic turnaround for the federal Liberals. 3 polls this week show the ruling party surging to within single-digit margins of their Conservative rivals. The polls show that much of the Liberal support is coming at the expense of Jagmeet Singh's NDP, which is hovering at around 9 or 10% support.
What you've seen is a coalescing of the left of center vote. I mean, the untold story here is really the fact that the NDP is in absolute critical condition.
The projections mean the New Democrats are at risk of losing official party status, and Singh faces an uphill battle to hang on to his seat in Burnaby South. In Nanaimo, typically an NDP stronghold in provincial and federal elections, some say they're likely to vote strategically rather than backing a party they've voted for in the past.
Behind the scenes, I think the federal NDP have done some good work, but it seems like their messaging and their branding really just hasn't been on point.
I voted Green previously for the last, but I will be voting Liberal.
I think it's definitely going to be strategic. I think right now, in my opinion, I don't think the NDP has much of a shot.
The NDP's campaign spokesperson says it's still early days, and she's seen the party rebound from poor polling numbers before. As for the vote-splitting concerns,
yes, we will have to fight strategic voting, just as we have in every single campaign that I've ever been involved in. The idea that voting for the party that you believe in is a wasted vote, I think is actually just voter suppression.
A Liberal strategist says it's clear that Carney's leadership has injected optimism into the party.
This is the perfect time for the Liberal Party to be calling an election, but you can't count your chickens before they hatch. There could be a lot of movement during an election campaign.
One Conservative strategist says Mark Carney's brief honeymoon period will not last.
Mark Carney has never been elected. Pierre Poilievre being his opponent, somebody that has been in the House of Commons for successive governments. He started at a very young age. He is a master communicator. He is a master campaigner.
As for when that campaign will officially kick off, many expect Carney to call an election before MPs return to Parliament on March 24th. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Meanwhile, on April 5th, voters will elect 2 new councillors in Vancouver's upcoming by-election. Now, some candidates have been attending all candidate meetings to get their message out. But as Chad Pawson reports, candidates from the dominant ABC party have been absent.
We'll fight against this political power.
Candidates for Vancouver's by-election in tight with voters taking questions, explaining their positions.
Yeah, I mean, this is democracy manifest, right? This is democracy in action happening.
This all-candidates event in Vancouver's Grandview Woodland neighborhood is one of several so far organized by communities to allow voters to get to know some of the 13 candidates running for 2 seats.
I love meeting all these people, too. I'm a people person, so it just kind of gives me energy and uplifts me as I get to know everyone in Vancouver.
Missing, though, are the 2 candidates from the party that holds a majority on council, ABC Vancouver. It's not sitting well with some voters.
So I think they were afraid to come maybe, but it's important to be able to have conversations with people. That's what politics is all about.
Why aren't they here? And they just feel like we don't even have to bother. We have the majority of the council, we're doing what we want to do.
ABC's campaign manager says it's all by design, that all candidate meetings don't make sense, having to compete for time and space with others.
When you can go and have people's undivided attention and organize 250 of your own events. I think that's a far smarter plan.
ABC Vancouver says it's doing 250 of its own events in 50 days at cultural centers, Rotary clubs, and in seniors' homes, a targeted approach to getting the votes it says it needs to add 2 seats to its current majority on council. This by-election is being seen by some as a referendum on ABC governance. Opposition parties hope their approach will inspire change. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And the BC Nurses Union is calling a recent assault on a healthcare worker at the Langley Hospital another wake-up call. It wants to see more security at healthcare facilities, especially as BC looks to recruit more doctors and nurses. Michelle Morton reports.
Langley RCMP say on March 8th, a man was arrested at Langley Hospital for attacks on a nurse and local security. Officers allege the suspect physically assaulted a nurse and produced an edged weapon, and say when police arrived, a man was in an altercation with hospital security. Now, the BC Nurses Union says that healthcare workers are increasingly having to deal with violent assaults on the job, and is reiterating calls for more security officers in healthcare facilities. The union says as the province works to recruit more nurses, now is the time to address safety issues.
If nurses don't feel that they're safe, if they don't feel that the work that they do is of value, and if they don't feel respected, they're not going to stay. There's an international nursing shortage. Nurses are highly educated. They can travel almost anywhere in the world to work. And so, we have to do a better job of not only recruiting nurses, but retaining the nurses that we have.
Now, the health minister says creating safe workplaces is a top priority. She says over the last few years, the province has almost doubled the number of relational security officers working in healthcare facilities. Now, these are security officers described as having training specifically around hospital settings, working to identify behaviors to help de-escalate and prevent situations from getting worse. The health minister says there's around 750 of those officers working across 30 different sites, which were picked in partnership with the health authorities and the nurses union.
Going to continue the work with health authorities and hospitals and with the union around the prevention of violence and the creating that culture, as well as addressing issues of workplace safety. And so whether it's security officers or other measures that need to be taken, this is why it's so important to continue that relationship and those conversations and ensure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that these are safe workplaces.
The ministry says it's in the process of adding more relational security officers at 2 more sites this spring for interior health. That's at Shuswap Lake General Hospital and South Okanagan General Hospital. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
All right, and Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at the weather. Darius, how's it looking out there?
Not too bad in most places. There's still a wind warning in place for Haida-Gwaii, but that should be coming down soon. The ones for the North Island and the Central Coast have already come down. If we take a look at the satellite and radar from earlier today, you can see lots of rain filtering into southwestern BC, and freezing levels still low enough that we're getting that snow up at those upper levels. Great news for the snowpack. It's been a very much below average season, but as we've gotten into March, we've seen a lot more of that snow coming down. Still more precipitation into tonight. Bit of a brief reprieve as we get into the overnight hours. More showers tomorrow morning for Vancouver, but a bit of a break for the west coast of Vancouver Island, which has seen a lot until we get into later Thursday when more rain will arrive.
All right, we'll catch up with you in a bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we wait to learn the company's future, some of BC's smaller towns and cities are grappling with possibly saying goodbye to the Bay. Well, our cameras caught up with some shoppers outside its Penticton location.
It's terrible. We have very few stores to shop at now.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard on especially small communities like ours is, because we don't have a lot of options. And like for myself, I do not shop online. I like to go and see the things. I like to touch things. I like to know what it is that I'm buying at the time when I'm buying it. And so for me, it is sad.
I saw it coming. I mean, there's not a lot of people that I see shopping in there. We go in there probably at least 3 times a week, and there hasn't been a lot of people. So I knew something was going to happen at some point.
It was easy to shop from. And a catalog to start with, and then you could do order online, and that's what I do.
It's an icon, but it's just like, I guess, Eaton's and the Sears, and I mean, if they can't handle what's coming by, they gotta shut down.
They've been long known for their sleek design and tech, but Tesla is suffering some bumps in the road as of late, including at a BC car show. Why the EV giant is absent from the Vancouver International Auto Show. That's next. Well, an EV giant is missing from Vancouver's International Auto Show this year, Tesla. Shivani Joshi shows us why the brand was removed and the reaction.
Over 100,000 visitors are expected at this week's Vancouver International Auto Show, eager to explore the latest models. But there's a major automaker absent from the event.
We are receiving overwhelmingly positive comments, agreeing that we made the right decision to remove Tesla from the show solely from a safety position.
The show's organizer says Tesla was given multiple opportunities to withdraw over the last 7 days, but was ultimately dropped a day before the show opened its doors. He says politics played no role in the decision.
So this is the city's beloved automotive event.
Tesla has recently faced strong backlash in Canada with protests at its dealerships due to Elon Musk's proximity to the U.S. President Donald Trump, who has threatened tariffs and annexation towards Canada. CBC News has reached out to Tesla but has not received a response.
I honestly think it was smart, especially in Vancouver. You know, people like to react a little bit, and Tesla's not exactly a Canadian company.
Well, I think Tesla is quite controversial at the moment. So for people who are here to just enjoy the show and not get too involved in the politics of it, it's probably a smart move.
I feel like it's just kind of not a great time for them to be involved in a show like this.
Yahoo! The company has also faced other bumps in the road this month. As of March 12th, Tesla vehicles have been removed from the province's EV subsidy program, a move Clean BC says was driven by eligibility changes.
You know, government can make changes and do whatever it wants to its program. We just have to administer it based on the rules that we're given. And they made the decision to exclude Tesla vehicles.
BC Hydro removed Tesla products from its electric vehicle charger rebate program in response to U.S. tariffs. And now its absence at this auto show, another sign of Tesla's ongoing tensions. Shivani Joshi, CBC News, Vancouver.
And protesters in Montreal, meanwhile, have vandalized a Tesla dealership in the city. This is the latest instance of backlash against Elon Musk. And CBC's Vanessa Lee has more on how that's affecting the company's bottom line.
Two young environmental activists filmed themselves as they spray paint the Tesla dealership. An act of vandalism in broad daylight.
They took this action to take a stand against the billionaire class. Elon Musk, who is the owner of Tesla, is currently taking control of the United States democracy and is dismantling it by defunding all environmental protections.
It's the latest in a spate of crimes targeting everything Tesla, as founder Elon Musk's influence grows in the White House. Vehicles and charging stations have been defaced or damaged, and showrooms the site of Tesla takedown protests in recent weeks. The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is investigating after Teslas were shot at and firebombed at a service center in Las Vegas. In Vancouver, the International Auto Show says it has removed Tesla as a participant at this week's event.
The political position on this has absolutely no bearing on the decision. This is purely from a safety point for our guests and our attendees.
Musk says he is shocked by what he calls hatred and violence from the left.
Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful. I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things. So I think we just have a deranged, there's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
But Musk has seen the haphazard slashing of the U.S. federal workforce. Some believe the backlash against the electric car maker is just the beginning of a larger movement against Donald Trump.
It's kind of the low-hanging fruit in a mass protest that is going to ramp up against, this kind of whole administration.
This growing wave of anger directed at Tesla is having an impact on its bottom line. Shares have fallen more than 40% since January. Vanessa Lee, CBC News, Montreal.
And a look at the day that was in wet and windy Tofino. Darius will have your full BC-wide weather forecast coming up. A 16-year-old has been arrested for allegedly stabbing a cab driver in Vancouver last night. It happened near Main and Hastings. Police say an off-duty Vancouver police officer saw the stabbing happen. On-duty officers then responded and arrested the suspect.
Well, it's still under investigation. What I can tell you is that we believe that a cab driver picked up a passenger somewhere in the downtown core and drove that passenger to the area of Main and Hastings. We believe there was some sort of a dispute, possibly involving payment when they arrived at their destination in the downtown east side. And as a result of that dispute, the cab driver was stabbed.
The 59-year-old driver was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries, and police recommend the teen, who is a boy from Richmond, be charged with aggravated assault. And Beijing has imposed 25% tariffs on Canada's seafood exports. It's in retaliation for Ottawa's tariffs on China's electric vehicles. And as Yvette Brand explains, the seafood industry is already feeling the pain.
Oh, here we go. In normal times, lobster and crab are Canada's top-selling seafood exports to China.
I imagine with the tariffs, we won't ship any crab to China at this point.
But this Dungeness crab is caught in the tangle of a trade war, with new tariffs from Beijing in retaliation for the surtax Canada put on electric vehicles from China.
You know, if this lasts for 3 or 6 months or something like that, like where is it going to end up?
He says tariffs are already hitting the industry hard.
I mean, we try to sell to Europe and places like that, but the main market is China. So if you've got this big tariff, then we have to try to pivot. But everyone's going to be pivoting. We're all going to be fighting for little markets here and there.
It's a very real threat. We export about $400 million worth of seafood to China every year.
Seafood exports, especially like this Pacific geoduck clam, are reliant on China, that buys $75 million worth a year.
We anticipate that we'll lose like 50% of our orders.
On the East Coast, seafood dealers at this Boston Seafood Expo were already aiming at new markets because of tariffs from the U.S.
Well, eventually, no, we're just finding other markets that, like, there's other places in the world that buy what we grow.
This industry is resilient, and this is another challenge that they're going to face, and we'll get through it.
But even for those who fish in the dangerous waters off the BC coast, fears are rising.
They are a very tough group of humans. These tariffs are going to hit pretty hard, though.
Advocates urging Canada to back off China.
Well, I hope that perhaps the Canadian government will rethink the tariffs on EVs, because the only good thing about this is it is a tariff dispute. They can be solved.
Until then, seafood sellers can only hope the latest tariff storm blows over. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump says he wouldn't mind if a Liberal leader won the next federal election in Canada. He says he'd prefer to deal with a Liberal leader rather than a Conservative one. Karina Roman looks at the possible reasons why.
U.S. President Donald Trump told Fox News that Canada's Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, is no friend of his, and in fact, he thinks it would be easier to deal with a Liberal. Fox host Laura Ingraham had suggested to Trump that the Liberals in Canada were now more likely to win a Canadian election, and asked Trump, wouldn't that mean Canada will be more hostile to the U.S.?
The Conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal actually with a Liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
This comes on the heels of Trump saying a couple of weeks ago that Poilievre was not a MAGA guy, even though one of Poilievre's MPs is good friends with Vice President J.D. Vance. Poilievre responded by agreeing he is not a MAGA guy, and today he agreed again with Trump's latest comments.
Yesterday, the president said that having a Liberal prime minister would be easier for him to deal with, just as he threatened once again to make us the 51st state. And you know what? On that point, it's true. I'm a strong leader. I'm a tough guy to deal with. I'm firm in my convictions, and I'll always put Canada first.
For weeks, the Liberals have been saying that Poilievre likes Trump, admires Trump, that his very words echo those of Trump. The Liberals released ads showing the two side by side saying very similar things. Such a framing is a problem for the Conservatives as Canada heads into a federal election campaign soon, in which who can best stand up to Trump will be a key factor. So, if voters take Trump at his word, they are not on the same page. A more cynical voter might see this, however, as Trump trying to help Poilievre by distancing himself. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
And the growing boycott of American-made goods isn't just happening in Canada. CBC's Nicole Williams shows us why many in other parts of the world are also refusing to buy American and even canceling their U.S. travel plans.
Here in Ottawa and across the country, the Buy Canadian movement is alive and well.
Hello, welcome.
With an ongoing trade war with the U.S. and President Donald Trump's threats to make Canada the 51st state,
we're looking for ways that we can fight back or at least defend ourselves. And I think economically, buying Canadian makes perfect sense.
But shoppers here say it's a bit more specific than that.
Anything that says made in Canada or anywhere else in the world, just try and avoid things that are made in America.
Turns out Canadians are not alone, from cutting back DEI initiatives to blaming the Ukrainian president for the war that Russia started. People around the world have their own reasons to turn their backs on the Trump administration. This world-renowned violinist canceled his American tour dates scheduled this summer.
I'm hurting myself with not being able to play those wonderful halls and orchestras and meeting all my friends in America. But I needed, for my own sake, a decision where I wouldn't feel wrong in what I'm doing.
In Sweden, this Facebook group dedicated to boycotting U.S. products has tens of thousands of members in just a few months.
I tried because I saw something and I didn't like it, and I tried. And that's how we in the group see ourselves.
This European grocery chain marking goods made on the continent with a black star to help customers at the checkout counter. But it's becoming bigger than produce. A recent report from Tourism Economics forecasts a dramatic drop in visits to the U.S. this year, meaning tourism spending could fall by $18 billion. But does all this mean much to the Trump administration? This economist isn't so sure.
If you think that it's going to actually do something, you're sorely mistaken. The U.S. economy is about $30 trillion per year, give or take.
Even still, the people I spoke to say it is the principle of the matter. As long as the Trump administration continues on the path that it's on, they say it is critical that they spend their dollar elsewhere. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
And police in Turkey have arrested Istanbul's popular mayor. Authorities say it's part of an investigation into alleged corruption and terror links. But critics say it's the Erdogan government cracking down on dissenting voices in the country. Chris Brown reports.
The arrest of Istanbul's popular mayor sent supporters into the streets, triggering clashes with riot police and fueling fears about the country's further slide into authoritarianism. It's a coup, said this protester, a coup against democracy. As the twice-elected mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu was perhaps the second most powerful figure in the country and the main political rival to President Tayyip Erdogan. Authorities detained him, alleging corruption and ties to terrorism, just days before he was expected to be selected to lead his party against Erdogan in the next presidential vote. Just before his arrest, İmamoğlu posted a video message accusing his opponents of using the police as a tool for evil and vowing not to give up. Erdogan has dominated Turkish politics for decades, first as prime minister and then as president. While the constitution doesn't permit him running for a third presidential term, he could get around that by triggering an early vote. And opponents say removing the popular İmamoğlu could be part of the plan. If that's the case, it's a massive gamble. Politically, Turkey has scored some big wins of late, including helping the opposition in Syria push out the Assad regime. Those successes could now be at risk, says this analyst.
So with this, the whole political, economic, and then the foreign policy picture has been poisoned. Societal discontent, the societal backlash, will probably be very significant, will probably be huge.
Protests have been banned, although Wednesday night thousands of people came out anyway. Erdogan's officials, meanwhile, deny anything improper. They claim Imamoglu's arrest had nothing to do with the president. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Israel's military says it's retaking a key corridor that divides Gaza's north and south. So Tuesday marked the deadliest day in the 17-month war, with more than 400 dead. As Crystal Guman-Singh tells us, a second day of Israeli bombardments may also have struck a UN site in the territory.
A United Nations compound and safe house in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza was hit. In that strike, officials say one United Nations worker was killed and several more were wounded.
It is also understood that there are at least 5 additional casualties, several of whom are very severely injured. What we do know is that an explosive ordnance was dropped or fired at infrastructure and detonated inside the building. We don't know at this stage what type it was.
They are not specifically saying that the strike was the result of an airstrike by Israel. In fact, Israel Defense Forces earlier in the day say that they did not strike the UN compound in Deir al-Balah. So we're waiting to see if any more details will emerge. However, what we are hearing from Israel's defense minister is a warning, saying that people in Gaza will be given instructions shortly to move out of potential combat zones and go to areas of safety. They're also issuing a notice to Hamas, telling them to immediately release all of the hostages and leave Gaza. The quote from Defense Minister Katz was, "Israel will operate with strength you have yet to see." So a situation that continues to unfold in Gaza as Israel's defense minister said they will not only continue with airstrikes but prepare for a ground operation if required. Crystal Guman-Singh, CBC News, Jerusalem.
And your favorite sweet treat might be getting more expensive. We have that story coming up next. And dozens of people have died after a monster storm brought violent tornadoes across 7 U.S. states this past weekend. Now, despite accurate forecasts, CBC's Johanna Wagstaff explains why this was such a devastating event.
The United States has more tornadoes than any other country in the world, and meteorologists are really good at forecasting where they might hit pretty far in advance. So why was this weekend's tornado outbreak so deadly? It came down to the sheer number of tornadoes spawned, their intensity, and the fact that they stayed on the ground for so long. Despite the number of people killed, this outbreak was extremely well predicted. The National Weather Service highlighted areas of peak concern 6 days in advance. Our forecast model showed us with high confidence the coming together of the 2 ingredients we need for severe thunderstorms. CAPE, that's how much energy is available. Think of it like fuel for the storms. And this storm was pulling in hot and humid air straight from the Gulf of Mexico, really priming the atmosphere. But we also need spin to help develop and intensify the storms once they form. This comes from changing winds with height, and with surface winds coming in from the south, winds higher coming more from the southwest. When these storms grew tall enough, they began rotating, turning into what we call supercells, the most dangerous kinds of storms because they're self-sustaining and long-lasting, producing multiple strong tornadoes over a long period of time. That means the tornadoes that were spawned stayed on the ground for up to an hour, rather than just a few minutes, ripping through multiple communities. And they were strong. Most tornadoes that touch down are usually on the lower end of the intensity scale, less than 120 kilometers an hour. But these were on the high end, winds over 260 kilometers per hour for some of them.
Oh my God! We are in a tornado.
The same storm system also produced fierce wind gusts that fanned wildfires in the plains and deadly dust storms in Texas and Kansas. So did climate change make this outbreak worse? We don't know for sure. The thing is, nowadays, we can say how much climate change increased the chances of a flood, fire, drought, even hurricane from happening. But tornadoes? Well, one of the most destructive are one of the smallest scale-wise, so they are really hard to model. And we know climate change is increasing the fuel needed for storms, but decreasing the spin. So researchers are still trying to figure out what the future holds. One trend we are seeing, tornado alleys shifting eastward in recent years.
Okay, your favorite chocolate bar might get a lot more expensive. As CBC's Ethan Williams reports, high prices have even forced some chocolatiers to close.
Faye Moffat is hard at work making her next batch of specialty chocolates, but the Saskatoon chocolatier is finding it much more expensive to purchase the cocoa she needs for her sweet snacks.
In 2023, it was about $3,300 a ton, and now it's up to about $10,000 to $12,000 a ton. So it's 3 to 4 times increased over the last year and a half.
It all stems from poor conditions for growing cocoa. Major cocoa-producing countries in West Africa have faced extreme temperatures, floods, and drought in recent growing seasons, ruining cocoa harvests. And conditions are only getting worse.
All of these different impacts are traced, they're more extreme and they're more frequent due to climate change, even though you can't attribute necessarily a single event due to climate change. But these have been tracked over the last 10 or 20 years, and you can see the increase in intensity and frequency.
One researcher says despite the resulting price hike on chocolate, the profits are not reaching cocoa farmers, preventing them from adapting to climate change.
They are not able to invest in their farms to regenerate their cacao trees, have more productive trees that are planted, or fight the disease and viruses that are affecting the tree.
It's not just the weather thousands of kilometers away that impacts Moffat's Saskatchewan business. Hotter summers here and hot temperatures lasting well into fall can melt her chocolate creations.
On weeks where it's, in the high 20s or 30s, we tend to not ship our chocolate unless our client really wants it. And then we will put ice packs in, but there are definitely times where we just have to slow our shipping.
And keeping all that chocolate cool with those ice packs and air conditioning is costly, adding to the already skyrocketing price of cocoa. And while she may not be able to buy her cocoa locally, Moffat says she works to buy everything else for her shop from Canada, supporting local industry while saving a few dollars. Ethan Williams, CBC News, Regina.
All right, and Darius Mahdavi joins us again with another look at the weather. Darius, I hear it is another special day for you.
It is. Well, a special night. 2:01 a.m., that is the Equinox. It also means that tomorrow is Persian New Year, Nowruz. So it is a pretty exciting time. Now, of course, we talked about this earlier in the week, Baneet, but the Equinox is the exact moment when the center of the sun is directly over the equator, which is why it's a specific time and not just a day. And we're going to get, here in Vancouver, about 2 hours and 12 minutes of sunlight tomorrow. So a little bit over the 12 hours that most people think we get. Beyond that, we'll talk more about the equinox tomorrow. I haven't decided yet. But let's talk about the weather for now, because it is a bit of a complicated forecast. It's not necessarily that extreme, although there will be some high precipitation totals in some places. It's more just a lot of flip-flopping between dry weather and wet weather, and it's very scattered where we're going to see those wet conditions and at what time. So I'm just going to roll this through. You can see some heavy rain coming with that next front after a brief reprieve tonight for the west coast of the island in particular. Freezing levels still low enough that we see some snow pretty much into the weekend. It looked like freezing levels might come up on Friday, but now it seems like they're holding steady right through. And Vancouver also getting some of that rain, but we're really not in the crosshairs for a lot of these systems that are going to be rolling through and have been rolling through. So that's why our rain hasn't been quite as significant. And if we keep rolling this forward, you can see that rain and those flurries really coming in and out. Some brief reprieves, especially Friday night into Saturday morning. And then another system will roll in Sunday, which we're not seeing here. I also want to highlight those flurries breaking into the interior, really starting to. That ridge of high pressure will continue to break down. So we'll see more snow breaking into the interior over the next couple days. Freezing levels in the interior hovering in the south around 1,000, 1,200 meters or so. So still expect to see snow up at those higher elevations. Watch out for those highways. We may see some difficult travel conditions, but overall things aren't looking too shabby, especially down on the ground, those lower elevations. Again, lots of rain coming up and down the coast, lots of precipitation, I should say, because a lot of that is snow at those higher elevations. Once again, the west coast of the island got a significant amount of rain already today and last night, but now things are starting to calm down a little bit. And again, Vancouver not really the target of this next system rolling through. Conditions tomorrow, the interior, again, getting a decent amount of sunshine, but lots of rain coming for the coast and parts of the southeast, getting some snowfall. And here's our 5-day forecast, Baneet. It's a bit of a confusing one, so you might want to pause, but showery tomorrow morning, then maybe some sunshine in the afternoon.
All right, well, embracing mostly for rain, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
And while artificial intelligence can be helpful, it's also helping some phone scammers gain trust. In a CBC Marketplace investigation, David Common shows us how AI has the potential to make fraudsters sound like family and friends.
Detecting scams is about to get a whole lot harder as scammers embrace artificial intelligence.
Oh, it's a playground.
At the world's largest fraud training and prevention conference, the alarm bells are sounding. Overseas scammers are harvesting our posts and videos from social media to use against our family and friends. Former CIA officer Peter Wormcutt did it in under a minute, using me as an example.
Hi, this is David Common reporting from Las Vegas, Nevada at the 35th Annual ACFE Global Fraud Conference.
That's nuts. By fraudsters. I spoke none of those words, but AI can clone my voice precisely from social media. It may have happened to Marilyn Crawford, an early morning phone call from a man identifying himself as the local police. Her son Kevin recounts what the caller said next. We have your grandson in custody. He has been involved with a car theft, and we need $9,000 to release him. It's called the grandparent scam. They said, here, we have Ian here, and he goes, "Hi, Grandma. Police say they need some money to release me, or they're going to keep me in jail."
In that moment, did you believe it was your grandson in trouble?
I did. I really did.
The scammers even sent her a taxi to take her to the bank. But an alert teller there stopped Marilyn from losing any money. Just as scammers use AI for voice cloning,
Hello, scammers. I'm your worst nightmare.
a British telecom is using AI to fight back.
I'm an AI created by O2 to waste phone scammers' time.
Daisy is not real, but she convincingly keeps scammers on the line.
Because while they're busy talking to me, they can't be scamming you.
All of it underscoring how much more sophisticated scams and scam busting have now become. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
From donuts to double doubles, is Tim Hortons still a Canadian icon? We'll take a look at the hot debate online amid Trump's tariffs and 51st state threats. With the ongoing trade war with the U.S., companies in this country are playing up their Canadian roots.
Among them, Tim Hortons. But as Mike Crawley shows us, its latest marketing campaign is triggering some debate.
Over its 60-year history, Tim Hortons has often marketed its Canadianness.
Citizenship, Canadian. Proof. Roll up the rim to win.
Now these social media posts are triggering a debate. Just how Canadian is Tim Hortons?
Oh, that's a great question.
The company was co-founded by hockey player Tim Horton and businessman Ron Joyce with one outlet in Hamilton in 1964. U.S. hamburger chain Wendy's bought the company in 1995 and maintained ownership for more than a decade. Then in 2014, Tim's was taken over by Restaurant Brands International. At that time, a Brazilian firm controlled nearly half of the company's shares. Now, the ownership is more spread out, including among U.S. and Canadian investors.
Is Tim Hortons really Canadian?
It's not owned by a Canadian company anymore,
it was
right?
founded by a Leafs player, Tim Horton, though.
Yeah, sure.
It's a Canadian company.
I think it's a Canadian company. It's like known for being Canadian.
The more than 4,000 Tim Hortons locations across the country are controlled by Canadian franchise owners like Tanya Doucette.
I'm Canadian. My family, we're part of this business. We've been almost 20 years as restaurant owners, my husband and I.
Tim Hortons is totally Canadian. I think it's our claim to fame. I don't know. It's very Canadian core to me.
They're very strategic in how they're marketing this.
Natasha Kaufman runs a public relations agency.
They're saying that it's a brand that's loved by Canadians, which is absolutely true. We've been part of Canada's history for 60 years, also true. But what's misleading is that they're not owned by a Canadian company anymore.
A Tim Hortons spokesperson says its corporate headquarters and main coffee roastery are located in Canada.
I'm not Canadian myself, so for me it's quintessentially Canadian.
All food for thought in a debate happening across the country, often over coffee. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. I will have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National.
Good night.